Hello, this is Siri and you're listening to my favorite podcast, Not Real Art. I live for this shit cause it's totally lit.
Let's go!
Hey, it's Not Real Art, the podcast. Siri's favorite art and culture podcast with your host, Man One, and Sourdough.
Yo.
I don't even know.
You seem relaxed.
Do I?
Yeah.
Do I normally seem like stressed and anxious?
Possibly. Possibly.
Yeah, I'm relaxed. I think in part because we're hanging out. Like, I'm not going to lie. Like, I fucking love when we do our podcast.
No distractions.
Just you and me chopping it up. You know?
Yeah.
I mean, what sort of stress? Stress about? About the only thing is to make sure we don't lose the episode.
No one's listening anyways. So it doesn't matter.
Yeah. I don't know. We're getting a few subscribers. We're getting some positive feedback.
Yeah, that's true.
I'm sure there are haters out there, but, you know, they haven't said much.
We need more haters.
Yes, that's right. You know, you're doing something right when you have a lot of haters.
Yeah. Yeah. More haters, more problems. And more money.
Yeah. Well, maybe I'm relaxed in part because I just got back from a little family vacay.
That's right. That's right.
Took the wifey and I took the kiddos for a little family vacay, and you know, I'm relaxed now because it's over.
Yeah.
Now I'm relaxed.
Yeah. So being on the beach in Hawaii with a 1-year-old and a 5-year-old isn't relaxing?
Hell no, it's not relaxing. You know how much blocking and tackling and saving of drowning babies I was doing, and say nothing of the shark attacks.
Yeah.
Here's what I've come to believe about traveling with kids, whether they're mine or anyone else's. I can only talk about my kids, right? But here's what I've come to.
You should only be traveling with your kids, by the way.
For the record,
you shouldn't be traveling with anyone else's kids.
Right. Without
that's not called traveling.
Without express written consent.
Yeah.
Yeah, traveling. It's not trafficking. It's traveling. It's not kidnapping. It's traveling.
Traveling.
Yeah. There's an interesting line between human trafficking and traveling. Yeah. No, what I've come to believe about traveling with my kids is that, you know, when it comes to flying with my kids from point A to point B, wherever point A or point B is, it basically sucks.
It's the flying part.
the flying part.
No matter where or how long.
Flying with kids is a pain in the ass. I don't care.
Right.
I don't care what anybody says. Anybody acts like it's easy or it's no big deal. They're lying to themselves. They're lying to you. They're like, you know, flying with kids is a pain in the ass.
So do they each have their own seat?
Well, no. My son sat in my lap.
Right.
And my daughter had her own seat.
Okay.
But my son is a maniac.
There's 3 seats and 4 of you.
Yes.
Yeah, got it.
My son is, 30-pound maniac.
Yeah.
And he just does not sit down. He's a precocious boy's boy. You know, and he's a strong. You know what my new nickname for my son is?
What?
Bam Bam.
That's a good one, actually.
Bam Bam.
He is Bam Bam.
He's Bam Bam. He's
You're
built
right.
like Bam Bam.
Yeah, you're right.
You know, the guns on this kid. He's 17 months almost, and he's got guns. Like he's strong as hell, and he's determined as hell, and he's cute as hell. It's a triple threat. He's a triple threat. And
he's Bam Bam Bam.
He's Bam Bam Bam. That's right.
That's what he is.
And so, you know, dealing with him on the plane is always exhausting. And then my daughter's at an age now where she can kind of chill watching a movie or whatever, you know. But she's still up and crazy doing her own thing, you know, like she wants to do this, do that, whatever. But, you know, and so, you know, getting there, arriving is a relief. And there are wonderful, beautiful, precious moments that are so lovely that you say to yourself, oh, right, this is why we do it. But then those moments are incredibly fleeting. And then there's just a bunch of more like craziness and stress.
Yeah.
You know, and you think, why the hell are we doing this? And then there's another beautiful moment and you're like, oh, this is why we do it.
Yeah.
So really, you're just trying to get to those beautiful moments,
Right.
you know, and trying to get as many of them, you know, as fast as you can,
As close together.
because otherwise it's interesting. So I'm saying all this to say that I think I'm becoming a big advocate for renting an RV, packing the kids in the car, and doing road trips to our amazing national parks, stuff like that.
Do you think that would be less of a headache or what?
Well, no, it wouldn't. No, it'd be a different kind of headache.
You're right.
That's all. I mean, it's going to be a headache. It'd be a different kind of headache. But let me be. I mean, one of the point I'm trying to get, like for me, the real pain and suffering comes on the plane, flying, getting to the airport, through the airport, onto the plane, sitting on the plane, flying, and then that portion,
that part of it, yeah,
to me is what I really, you know, take issue with.
Yeah,
you know, road tripping with the kids in the RV doing whatever and yelling and screaming and stuff. Like, I know that's like it would have its own thing, but like I'm ready to try it. I'm ready to.
You're ready for that.
I'm ready to just go there, you know,
right?
And see what I can bitch about, you know, with that. Because, you know, kids don't want to be contained. No. That's the problem with the plane, right? You're in a container.
I don't think I ever flew with my kids until they were like around 10 years old.
Yeah. Smart man. You're smart.
So.
Yeah. Why didn't I talk to you first? My wife's like, but I want our kids to be children of the world. I'm like, they're 5 years old. They're 2 years. They're not even like, they got their whole lives to be children of the world.
You know what? I just, not to burst your bubble, but you could have taken them down to Santa Monica and then later on in life told them, yeah, that was Hawaii.
Right.
They would have said, awesome.
I could have given them a lei and a sort of kind of tropical drink, you know, rum, you know, Tahitian kind of like a cocktail.
Right.
And a glass, you know, glass to hold. And, you know, they will, you know, put the ocean behind them. They wouldn't have done any different.
Call it a day.
Call it a day. Yeah. I mean, look, you know, right. It's not about me anymore. Right. It is all about the kids. And, you know, the truth is that it is awesome to see their consciousness expand.
Sure. Yeah.
You know,
I can see that.
Because you can see, because it's, I mean, you know, there's nothing there. So, you know, you can notice the change. The change is pretty revolutionary. It's kind of, you can see the light bulbs going off.
Right.
And so that's cool. You know, I like seeing their minds open and their consciousness expand. That's pretty cool. But we should just do it in an RV. So, yes, I'm relaxed after my my family vacation.
So to jump off from the RV talk.
Sure.
So now that my kids are on the other end of the spectrum, they're all, you know, my daughter's 18, my boys are 20. So we're pretty much done raising them.
Please quit bragging.
So I'm fucking proud of it. I'm fucking proud of it. They survived. I didn't kill them.
Yeah, that's huge.
There's halfway decent kids.
They are great kids.
So we're planning. We want to go to the Grand Canyon. We've never been to the Grand Canyon.
Yes.
You know?
Yes. Right.
So, you know, I don't know if we're going to do it, you know, in the spring or next summer or whatever, but, you know, we want to do that. So because of our recent experience with the RV, which went all bad.
It was like the hottest day of the year and the air conditioning went out.
Yeah, it was the hottest day of the year. There was no air conditioning.
So you're basically sleeping in an oven.
It was sleeping in an oven. It was miserable. So now Laura wants to do this new thing where we just drive to wherever the destination is and they bring the RV to you. So you don't even drive the RV.
Oh.
They just, instead of pitching a tent, they just pull up
that's
the freaking
cool.
RV.
Yeah.
Well, that's what my wife says. She's like, that's how we're doing it now.
Right.
We're just going to drive it wherever. We're just going to drive to wherever the destination is.
Right.
Have them deliver the RV.
Right.
And then when we're done, they come pick it up.
Right.
They come pick up the RV and they leave.
Right.
And we go on our way. How about that?
I kind of dig that shit. Right? That sounds amazing, actually. You know, because I mean, driving an RV can't be easy.
No.
You know, it's a whole thing. I don't know if you've ever seen those viral videos of the RVs like swerving across the lanes because they do something stupid or the winds or whatever blow them over. And
right.
Yeah.
And if something goes wrong on the weekend, you call them and say, "Hey, the AC went out."
Oh, so it's like full service.
Yeah.
In that regard.
It's like, hey, the AC went out.
Right.
Come bring us a new one. So I think that's what we're gonna do next time.
Well, that sounds amazing, and keep me posted because if there's a membership club, I may want to join it.
Right.
But that's the thing about RVs. I've done some work in the RV industry,
That's right.
and one of the dirty little secrets about the industry that they don't want to talk about is that at the end of the day, product quality sucks.
Right.
Like these RVs are they shit happens to them, and getting them repaired, service and maintenance,
Right.
it's very difficult, very
Right.
challenging because the dealer isn't going to fix it for you.
Nope.
The manufacturers don't have really licensed repair teams that, can fix your stuff. So you're oftentimes caught in a kind of a conundrum where everyone's pointing at the other person. And so, yeah, it's kind of the dirty little secret of the industry. So this service that you're talking about is really cool because, it's like AAA for RVs or something,
It's like Airbnb / AAA.
Right. Right.
But yeah, and to your point, so what happened to us on this last trip at the lake is we borrowed an RV from my brother-in-law. When the AC went out on day one and it's 120 degrees, then you have a problem because it's like, number one, we're way out there, in the boonies. So we can't take it somewhere to get serviced, obviously. It's a holiday weekend and everything's closed. We can't call my brother-in-law and say, "Hey, we just blew out your your AC or whatever,"
Yeah.
So we were kind of stuck. But here's the trippy thing, to your point, was luckily my brother-in-law is an electrician.
Right. My dad's an electrician. It's good to have in the family.
Yeah. So my wife's brothers, all 4 of them are electricians. So
Wow.
yeah.
You're wired.
And my father-in-law and all his brothers are carpenters.
Dude,
So
why aren't we in the construction
we could-
business? Why aren't we building houses?
Right. We should be in the wrong fucking
It's
business.
amazing. We have like the turnkey team right there.
Right
Okay.
there,
Okay.
So what happened is my brother-in-law, being an electrician,
Mm-hmm.
went in there and figured out that what happened is the electrical panel, just blew out or whatever.
Burned up.
It burned up because all the wiring, the microwave, the fridge, the outlets, all the wiring, the AC was on one
Oh, jeez.
panel,
Jeez. Yeah.
So it short circuited,
Sure.
all went out.
Yeah.
So what he did is he rewired the entire RV.
Okay. Right.
And,
Wow.
and created 2 different,
Right.
2 different panels so they can hold.
Right.
You can share the load.
Right.
But who would have done that? Who would have realized that? I wouldn't have fucking known that.
No, of course
if I had
not. No,
RV,
you're
I'd have been-
screwed. Yeah.
I'd be like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
So unless you're an electrician and you know what the hell you're doing, you're going to be screwed if something goes out on your RV.
Right. Right.
Yeah, it's a dirty secret.
Well, that's cool. No, I mean, there's, the whole RV thing is interesting because they're kind of, the industry's booming and, millennials are embracing RVs in a way that they hadn't in the past. RVs historically have been kind of relegated to, retirees, either, retirees sort of taking off,
Cross country,
whatever, or, I guess maybe folks that live in RVs, full time, whatever, for whatever reason, maybe, rednecks that use them for hunting and fishing or whatever the case might be.
Yeah.
We used to call them the hook and bullet crowd. The hook and bullet crowd likes RVs a lot.
Right.
But it was always like a recreational thing, RVs, recreational vehicle. Now they're becoming a tool for people to live and work in and, live kind of a nomadic life. Anyway.
Well, the RVs are also exploding in LA. You notice that?
They're exploding in LA?
Well, they are exploding too. But I'm saying there's an explosion of RVs in LA.
Okay.
Because of the homeless problem.
Sure. Right. Of course.
Just where my studio's at, there's a stretch down this one street where there's literally like 6 RVs parked there, like all the time.
Yeah.
All the time. And it's just these homeless people who live in these RVs.
Sure.
And probably about 2 months ago, one of them literally exploded. They were
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
Were they
like-
hurt? Were they okay? Did they
I
get
don't
out?
know. I don't know. I mean,
Were they cooking meth?
Yeah, I think that's what it was.
Oh, no shit.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, they were cooking meth, and the fucking thing exploded. You know, so now there's this whole thing where they're trying to pass all these laws now that it's illegal to sleep in a vehicle. Did you hear about this?
No.
There's a new ordinance in the city of LA.
No.
It's illegal to sleep in a vehicle overnight,
Oh, Jesus.
right?
And yeah, we want to help the homeless population in the
So
city.
if you have a car and it's on the side, right? If you're sleeping in your car, so if you have a car, so at midnight, if you get out of your car and you sleep on the sidewalk next to your car, you won't get cited. But if you sleep in your car, you'll get cited.
Okay. You had to bring some stupid shit up.
This is Los Angeles. This is what's going on.
No, but this is fucking government,
yeah.
right? And this is why. Whoa, you just opened a can of worms. I need to be careful with my words here.
Yeah.
But like, because I don't want to sound like a conservative because I'm not a conservative. But like, this is to me overregulation, right? Bad policy, bad government, right? Because if somebody wants to fucking sleep in their car and die, take that risk, that's on them. Like, it makes no sense for the government to say you can't sleep in your fucking car when that person's homeless. You want them sleeping on, like, because it's hypocritical. On one hand, they're saying, what are we doing about the homeless population? We need to find affordable housing. We need to fix this. It's a mess. And then on the other hand, for those people that actually happen to have a car and can have shelter and sleep in that car, now they're saying, no, you can't do that because some asshole was cooking meth in an RV. It is an overreach. It is bad design.
The problem is, the reason this stupid shit's coming up is because it's people, it's the not in my backyard, right?
Sure.
So it's like, sure, they want to take care of the homeless and they want to, it sucks that there's homeless people. So then homeless people figure out a way, okay, well, if I get a vehicle and I park on the side street, then, I won't be sleeping on the floor.
Mm-hmm.
But these people who live on that street are now calling the cops and saying, hey, there's cars parked in front of my house all day long. you know?
Right.
And there's homeless people living inside there, right?
Right.
So the cops can't tow those cars because there's no ordinance against
Right.
parking in public.
Right.
So, so like to your point, it's like, so the city has to figure out this whole crazy way to, come up with some quote unquote solution, which really isn't, on how to address the homeowners and, but it is ridiculous. And on the positive side, I just heard recently also that they're allowing at the vets, at the VA down here, that if you're homeless and you don't have a place to stay, if you bring your vehicle, if you come in your vehicle and park on their lot, they'll let you sleep there.
This is exactly where I was going. I was thinking, it was like, where are the city parking lots that people can come and safely and securely sleep
Now
for
they
the
have
night?
rules like no drugs.
Yeah, of course.
and
You
no alcohol.
have to have that shit. But I'm just saying, like, and look, I know this is a complicated issue and there are a lot of smart people trying to figure it out. But just because some fucking asshole cooked meth in their RV and caused damage to themselves or to their property doesn't mean everybody has to suffer.
Right.
If some, and to me, the whole conversation about big government versus little government is the wrong conversation. It's about the right government. I don't want big government or little government. I want smart government.
Right.
And this to me gets to that, right? It's like, the lack of imagination and the lack of creativity when it comes to policy design and creating things that work for the community at large, that are practical, viable, reasonable. And I think this particular issue, it got me excited because of the hypocrisy, because you have all these politicians talking about how they want to fix the homeless situation.
Sure.
And yet they've just, boxed them out of their own cars.
Right. Yeah, it's fucking crazy. I guess George Carlin had the best solution. He said, put them on golf courses.
Right.
He's like, it's a racist and classist game anyways.
Yeah.
Just, we have thousands and thousands of acres of golf courses everywhere.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Yeah, man. I don't know. Well, anyway, where do we even go with that? I don't know. I'm just like, we really. How do we go from Hawaii to homeless?
Well, that's the world we live in. That's
right?
the world we live in.
From Hawaii to homelessness.
Hawaii to homeless. Now, are there homeless people in Hawaii? Did you notice that?
Not that I was aware of.
Yeah.
Did not see. So obviously Hawaii has several islands.
Yeah.
We went to Kauai.
Okay.
I did not notice anybody. Now, I did see some folks that seemed more like, what shall we call them? Like hippie hikers that have been outdoors for a long time,
right?
And probably surf and smoke a lot of weed a lot, and so they have that sort of patina of a homeless person.
Yeah.
You're not sure if that's a tan or if it's dirt or what, but you know what you do have in Hawaii, which I think is really interesting. It feels like, and I've been to Hawaii 4 times. I've been to Kauai twice. I've been to Maui. I've been to Kona, and every place is different or whatever, but of course you have a situation, right, where the indigenous folks that are there, the Hawaiians that are there, they're still there, and and then you have everyone else,
all the tourists,
the tourists, but then the other residents that live there. And it's interesting because while I know there's great wealth there, for the most part, things seem pretty balanced. But there's also in Kauai, there's also not a lot of people.
Yeah.
It is kind of a, how shall I say? I mean, rural or primitive kind of island. I mean, it's not developed. I mean, there are pockets, cities and houses and shopping centers and stuff, but it's as those islands go, those Hawaiian islands go, this is probably one of the more less underdeveloped.
And which island was that one?
The Kauai.
Okay.
But what I'm trying to get to is this idea that it feels like a very family friendly kind of place, which probably stems from the Hawaiian culture more than anything, which is beautiful. Like, it's a wonder, like everyone is, and it's, I guess it's typical of a lot of islands, but like island culture, you're out on a rock in the middle of the ocean somewhere. I mean, it's laid back. It's kind of, easy breezy for the most part. Everyone is chill. Like, no one's stressed out or whatever. It didn't seem, the people that are stressed out are the tourists,
Right. Yeah.
And so the vibe there for a family, vacationing, or for just families living there, seems like very like hospitable and nice and good, Right. Now, are there jobs for people? What do people do?
Yeah.
I mean, every place needs an electrician. Every place needs a plumber, tradesman, all kinds of people that are working, obviously with their hands and, skills or whatever. There's obviously a whole service industry, restaurants and those kinds of things. Then you have your basic needs, whether it's the hospital or the fire department or the airfield or whatever. But you're still on a rock in the middle of the ocean, right. And if you need brain surgery, they're probably going to have to evacuate you to Maui or to Honolulu or to the mainland. You know what I mean? The resources on Kauai are pretty, they're limited. They're limited.
Yeah. Well, because I always hear, I've never been, but I always hear how expensive it is and how it's hard to find work.
Sure.
Unless you're in those specific fields.
Yeah.
I've had friends who went out and lived out there for a little while and then decided to come back because they couldn't.
Right.
They were struggling.
Right. Yeah. No, I've heard that too. I mean, I get this, sense that probably keeps the population pretty limited. And what issues there might be between the haves or the have-nots, or the Hawaiians and the whites, I don't know. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not there.
Yeah.
But, I didn't get really a sense of it while I was there. The thing that was, I don't know, to kind of maybe, segue into a conversation about it that seems more germane to the podcast than general discussion, is about how observing the arts community there, and again, having only really been to, just kind of one area, to the Honolulu.
Oh, that's what the shirt is.
Honolulu,
right. There you go.
Kauai area.
Yeah.
They're, inevitably, and you get this a lot in tourist towns anyway, right? You get a lot of little galleries and little, artisan stuff and whatever. But I was, yet again reminded of how environment shapes art.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
It's fascinating to me, right? What would happen, right, to your art if Man One did a cultural exchange with an artist from, Kauai, right? So in other words, artists from Hanalei moved to, downtown LA and to your studio. And you moved into their studio in Hanalei, and you had to live there for a year, right? How would your art change? Because the environment changed. How would their art change? Because their environment changed.
Well, the first thing that comes to my mind is, I've been to a lot of places where it's beautiful and pristine, and I imagine, Hawaii being like that. And I don't want to fucking paint graffiti,
right?
when there's beautiful nature all around.
Mm-hmm.
Like it doesn't jive, Like I remember being in the mountains in Japan doing a graffiti workshop in Osaka. We were doing it on canvas in this really beautiful, mountain with like 100 students or whatever. And even then I felt weird. And we were painting on canvas. We weren't painting on walls or anything. But even then it felt so weird because there's this culture that you're now, kind of intruding on.
Yes.
With your own, type of art form that, doesn't really belong there. It doesn't belong in that culture and especially in that setting. And so, I don't know. It'd be really weird. I think I'd most definitely change, my approach, I think,
I find that super fascinating because I've wondered about that, a lot, right?
Even the fact of using spray can.
Yeah.
Like you'd probably be more, concerned about your environment and what harm a spray can do.
Interesting. Right.
But then again, a powwow was started in Hawaii, right?
I believe it was.
So you got all those artists out there who are doing stuff for powwow but is that mostly on the?
It's in the city.
I
think they started in
Honolulu.
Or Honolulu, I think. Yeah, it was in one of the cities.
Yeah,
it was one of the.
So and I know they work with a lot of local artists. So that's an interesting.
Well, but okay, so and this kind of bumps into the whole, graffiti versus street art conversation. But just taking it back to the original kind of premise is that, to what extent does the environment shape the art, and how would your art change if you change your environment? And to what extent, as you as a graffiti artist, to what extent was that a byproduct of the fact that you were born and raised in Los Angeles?
Right.
And then when you go to, whether, I don't care if it's Hanalei or Laguna Beach, you go to Laguna Beach and you're going to see a ton of watercolor paintings of the sunset,
right,
and the beach and the coast and the landscape stuff, and you see that a lot in Hawaii. You also see a lot of what we'll call arts and crafts and artisan kinds of artworks, whether it be jewelry and pottery and crystals and you got that new age thing happening that can happen in a beautiful wilderness island kind of setting. But then, of course, because of the indigenous history and you have all of their art, which is really the cool stuff. I mean, like, that's what you want, and this whole idea of oceanic art and what does that mean in the Polynesian culture, and and so to me that was super interesting. And unfortunately, it was the last day I was there, I discovered this gallery that was all about oceanic art, as they called it, but it beautiful stuff. But I mean, they even had stuff in there from like Papua New Guinea or whatever. But I mean, it was like a lot of like Hawaiian stuff as well. But I don't know. I mean, there was a ton of watercolor of sunsets there too. You know what I mean? So it's like, to your point about, I didn't see graffiti. I didn't see street art. Now, I saw murals. I saw a few murals. But, those murals were there probably 20 years ago. Yeah. They weren't called street art then. And it wasn't, it wasn't street art. They were murals.
Sure.
If you can appreciate what I'm saying,
Right.
Celebrating the local community or something.
I can't remember who it was, but there was an artist one time told me that, artists adapt to their environment.
Yeah.
So if you live in a 1-bedroom studio apartment, your work is going to reflect that,
Right.
because you're limited by scale, size, whatever.
Sure.
So, if you live in the city, your work's going to reflect that. If you live in the wilderness, So, I mean, I definitely think that because, dude, come on, that's what art is. That's what art is, right? It's life. It's like, if you're being true to yourself, then you're expressing, your surroundings, you're expressing who you are, where you're at, all that kind of stuff. So, I mean, that's why I love traveling.
Yeah.
Because when I come back, I'm so inspired.
Right.
I'm able to see things differently in a new light and for a new perspective and integrate it into, what I'm doing here, So, yeah, I mean, I think it would definitely change my art if I lived somewhere like that, absolutely.
Yeah, well, and you talk about the limits of one's environment. You of course, you were very kind not to point out the limits of one's own skill set and talent and abilities. I mean, you as an artist, let's be frank, right? A lot of graffiti artists are one-trick ponies.
Yeah, that's true.
Okay, and I don't mean that in a pejorative sense. I'm just saying that it's a fact, right? They do what they do, and that's all that they do. They can't pick up a paintbrush and do a portrait necessarily. Right. And that's great. They're excellent at what they do, but to be a multidisciplinary artist is a different thing. And you are a very unusual graffiti artist in that you actually studied art at university and have your fine art degree. And you are a multidisciplinary artist. You can pick up a paintbrush.
Sure.
And do a portrait work. So you could move to Hawaii and adapt because your skill set and talent and abilities are robust enough that you can flex and evolve and adapt. A lot of artists wouldn't be able to do that. Now, would they figure out a way and find a way? Yeah, sure. I mean, if you're a true artist, you're going to figure it out. But I think the more tools in your toolbox, the better off you're going to be. And, I think, you've got a lot of tools in your toolbox as an artist. But
well, also like your market. Right? Because now you're on an island. So if you're going to make a living as an artist, you have to be able to know who your audience is.
Yeah.
You really are limiting yourself by just being on an island, like literally, right? Because now, so maybe more people try to, as an artist, maybe you can try to sell to tourists. So you got to do touristy type of work.
Right.
So you can make a living because, here in LA, you may have, there's thousands and thousands of art collectors in LA.
Sure.
And you may only have a handful on an island, right?
Well, and it's such an interesting thing to ponder because would a watercolor of sunset in Hawaii sell in a gallery in downtown LA? Right? Where does it have a best chance of selling? At its source of origin, or in some faraway land. I mean, part of what I'm getting at is, you talk about, selling to tourists. And what it struck me, of course, is that, all these little galleries, of course, have the same fucking problem that every other fucking gallery has in terms of marketing and promotion and selling through. And how do they market beyond their current customer? So, of course, that gets to, internet and web and blah, blah, blah. But I don't know. I mean, is somebody going to be in New York City going to be inclined to go and search for a beautiful watercolor of the sunset in Honolulu when they're not in Honolulu?
Probably not. And if they are, it's probably a, small percentage. But that reminds me of, the artist Wyland.
Yeah, sure.
Right. So, I mean, he's a great example of someone who found a niche, right? And I guess maybe he started in Laguna.
Yeah, I think so. Long Beach, maybe.
But he has galleries in Hawaii and all these places all over the world. And smart guy. I mean, not only is he a good artist, but he's a smart guy and knows about marketing, knows about business. Actually, I just downloaded a book he has. It's a free download. If you go to his website, you sign up to his website, his newsletter. Again, smart marketer. You sign up to his newsletter, and he sends you free his book called, I think it's called "Don't Be a Starving Artist" or "How Not to Be a Starving Artist," something like that. It's called.
Oh, I got to get it.
Yeah, and so I have it on my phone, and just
You know what? Just forward it to me.
I'll forward it to you. Yeah.
I know I'm not
Yeah,
signing up
yeah,
for a
sign
second.
up,
Exam.
I'll
See,
forward it.
now that's smart.
That's
I outsmarted
you outsmarted
his
the
smartness.
smart. I'll send it to you. But yeah, it's he has all these little tips.
Mm.
Really, some are very simple, some are whatever, but it's his experience. And one of the things he talks about is, like, for example, he's always had a studio where he lives, right? And his studio always has a section for a gallery,
Sure.
so that he's working and can sell work as well.
Yep.
And so that's how he's always set himself up,
Mhm.
no matter where he goes. So any of his galleries, I guess, are also his studio.
Yeah.
So it's just like a very smart way of
Well, and I
operating.
understand. It's my understanding that his big murals are lost leaders
Right.
for the most part. So he'll do. This could be. This is what I've heard. I don't know if it's true or not, but it seems reasonable that he does the big murals and on his own dime, because of course they're the biggest billboards and marketing for people that then end up at his store, his studio, or some other place.
And he talks about the importance of attaching, some kind of charity.
Yeah, sure.
To your work, to find a purpose in your work, and
social.
Obviously, like
good.
not everyone's into whales and ocean art,
right?
But there's people who are into the environment,
right?
And there's people who will support him just because of that. It's weird. That's where we got on this tangent about Weiland, because I just saw a post at the Beyond the Street show, and Slick was with Weiland, giving him a tour.
No kidding.
Yeah, Weiland was there, and he gave him a tour.
Yeah, nice.
And so that was kind of trippy,
That's really cool.
So, but yeah, so shout out to Weiland.
Yeah,
and
no
Slick.
kidding.
Shout out to Slick.
For sure. Slick, what up? Slick, you don't know this, but I'm a collector of yours. Actually, you do know this. We've met previously at Crewest briefly one day, but I bought the Janet Jackson piece. You may recall.
That's right.
This conversation about, because we're all shaped by our environment. I mean, the conversation that we're all shaped by our environment on multiple levels. And so why wouldn't an artist and their art be shaped by their environment, or inspired or influenced or whatever by their environment? But to me, the interesting thing is, like, how would it evolve if artists drastically changed, their environment? I mean, talk about white privilege. Give me one of these rich white chicks out of Laguna Beach who paints watercolor sunsets all day long. Yeah. And let's put her downtown LA adjacent to the homeless, front lines of the homeless. And let's see how her art changes. If she can, she won't survive it.
Yeah, she won't survive. But how funny we mentioned Slick. Slick is from Hawaii originally.
Oh, right. Yes.
Right?
Sure.
You can see how he blossomed.
Yeah,
in LA.
No kidding. Well, we got to have him on the show. You got to reach out to him and invite him to, we got to figure out who our next guest is going to be.
I know, man. We haven't had a guest in a while.
Yeah, it's been a minute.
Yeah.
So it's a very special privilege to be a guest on our podcast.
Not anyone can just call in and ask to be on there.
That's it. And we're very selective.
We've said no to a lot of people.
We have said no to a lot. We've said no to countless people. I've lost count.
Remember when Donald Trump called and we told him to fuck off? Do you remember that one?
Well, it was his people called.
Yeah. It was really him disguised as his people, though.
Well, right, because he does his own voices. Yeah, yeah. Well, it's an interesting little podcast we're developing here. I know I'm a fan.
You're a fan? Are you subscribed to our podcast?
I am subscribed. Are you subscribed?
I don't think I'm subscribed, actually.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
I'm going to have to fire your ass.
But I will be. I'll subscribe. But I am subscribed to Weiland's newsletter.
Which you're going to send me the book so I don't have to subscribe.
So there you go.
Free giveaways. People are suckers for free giveaways. Did you find the book useful? Was there good stuff?
Yeah. I mean, a lot of it I've already kind of knew.
Yeah, right.
Which is good, which is like, but yeah, there's a few gems in there.
But it's interesting. If the book is about, what's the book called again?
I think it's
How Not to Be a Starving Artist or something?
Yeah, something like that. Or Don't Be a Starving Artist.
So
like
clearly, it seems like, based on the title, that his primary audience are fellow artists or other artists. And yet he wants people to sign up for his newsletter.
Yeah.
And I'm guessing the newsletter is more of a consumer-based mass market newsletter.
Yes.
So I wonder if he's, losing. I mean, is everybody signing up just to get the book, whether you're an artist or not? Or is he like, are a lot of people not signing up because they don't find the book interesting because they're not an artist? You know what I mean? Like,
I think if you sign up as a newsletter, he doesn't really. There's a link somewhere on where I found it, and it said, "Oh, by the way, I have his book, and if you just sign up, you'll get it."
Right.
So I think people just sign up. But to be honest, I don't think I've even received one newsletter email blast yet.
Right.
So,
oh, you will. You'll get some stuff.
You think so?
You'll get something.
It's already been like a month, though. I think he's lagging.
Have you checked your junk folder?
Oh yeah, that junk folder.
Yeah, it's probably in the junk folder.
There. Well, there you go.
No, but look, it's a fascinating conversation, Weiland, because, Weiland, obviously is hugely successful, what have you, but there are other artists who, like Weiland, have really tapped into something that is very mass market oriented. Thomas Kincaid, the artist of light.
Right. Yeah, that's true.
Another example of that, right?
Yeah.
There's an artist. I see his stores in Florida, the Miami International Airport. He has a store.
Brito.
Yes.
Yeah,
he's another example.
Yeah,
right?
he's another example.
Who else? Of course, artists that have passed on, have become, but I'm talking about really artists in living that have really broken out into the mass. So it's, I don't know. I mean, were they doing what they were doing and then they just caught fire and consumer base sort of chose them, or was it a deliberate effort on their part to go mass and try to, appeal?
I think it has to be deliberate. I don't think you could just kind of stumble upon that. I think maybe initially you might stumble upon, like, you do a project for Disney, let's say, and you're like, oh, wait a minute, if I keep doing this,
right?
So yeah, I think it's deliberate. I think you wouldn't be able to survive in that market if you weren't really trying to do it. That's what I think.
So, but part of what's interesting about this conversation to me is, like, back in the day, the phrase commercial artist meant something specific. It was like, you were a commercial artist or you were a fine artist, right?
Yeah.
And I'm thinking 1988. I'm thinking 1995, right? And who were the Kincaids and the Weilands of 1995 or 1990? I don't think, maybe they were out there. I don't know. But what is what is commercial art now? What is fine art now? I can't imagine. I mean, I'm sure Weiland laughs his way to the bank, but I don't think anybody takes him seriously at Basel.
Sure.
I don't know.
That's a good point. Yeah. It's just weird because now when when I think about a commercial artist, right, to your point, like, who's a commercial artist right now? Like, that's killing it.
Well, I mean, just
see, I don't know, right? It doesn't come to mind right away. That's my point. It's like, because everyone is kind of commercial in a sense, but that's not all they're doing. But if you think about, like, previous decades, especially like you said, like in the 80s and 90s,
right,
you could probably rattle off a few, big time commercial artists, that was specifically what they were doing. They weren't trying to sell in museums or galleries. They were really, doing stuff for the mass market.
In terms of my definition of commercial artist vis-a-vis or circa 1988 or 1990, commercial artists were artists that were doing commercial work, right? So they were photographers, illustrators, graphic designers that were primarily probably working in advertising or some fashion or something like this, right? Fine art, or, fine artists were trying to do the gallery thing. Of course, that was, way before fairs and anything else, right? Maybe they were doing museums, they were doing galleries. That's, what it was. But again, getting back to, for all kinds of reasons that, the lines have blurred and things have shifted, this idea of what commercial artists, what a commercial artist is, I think has really expanded in many ways, because to me now, a commercial artist is an artist trying to make a fucking living.
Exactly. That's what I'm trying to say. And I mean, it's like, if I look at what I do for a living, I consider myself a commercial artist, but I'm also a fine artist.
Sure.
And a lot of times it's the same painting that's
the same brain, same mind, same artist.
Well, yeah, but sometimes, people differentiate well, I'm doing this for commercially, so I'm not going to put my whole soul into it. Or
Sure.
I'm doing this strictly for museums, so I'm not going to put it on a cover of an album or whatever. But now, like you said, it's been blurred so much that now a painting that I can create as a 100% authentic piece that I want to show in a museum, for instance, can also be, used for a commercial for Nike,
Right.
Like that's the state we're living in now.
Right. Well, so this also begs the next question about, well, then what is fine art now? Right. So you talk about paintings that you want to sell or to use in brand work or make backpacks or stickers with, but then you have, artwork that you're creating that you want to have in a museum or whatever. Well, what's the difference? So, and you'll answer that question. I surmise that the difference is that the fine art is that it is purely an idea that you originated for the idea in and of itself, with no concern as to whether or not it will sell. Like it is purely
art for art's sake.
Art for art's sake from your mind, from your heart. That's what fine art is in this context. Mm-hmm. You're creating it for yourself, for your own artistic integrity or whatever.
Sure.
Whether it ends up, in a museum, I mean, obviously you hope that it goes, but at the end, it's art for art's sake, to your point.
So if that's your definition, which I agree with.
Yeah.
But then you have artists who are doing shit like Koons, right?
Sure.
It's got portraits of Michael Jackson, statues of Michael Jackson and stuff like that. Now what? That's museum quality work being sold for millions of dollars, but it's not based out of his own head. Like obviously there's a commercial end to his thinking, right? And other artists like that, So what about that? So I don't know. It kind of throws a wrench in it, I think.
Well, this gets back to the systemic issues of the art world, right? I mean, we talk about all the time how shady the art world is, and how hypocritical it is, and how biased it is, and how racist it is, and how I think this is an example of how the art world can and does work. And Koons is a guy that was an opportunity. He's an opportunist. He had money. He was a Wall Street guy.
Right.
And as I understand it, I could be wrong. I don't think I am, but I understand he made his money on Wall Street. And then he went into art. So he had the money to hire fabricators, hire assistants, hire artists to work for him. So I think you have in Koons, you have this interesting mix of a guy who understands the moneyed classes, understands how money gets made in Wall Street in New York, and that commercial, that very sort of, world of commerce and capitalism. He's a smart guy, so he was able to kind of figure out, the art game, if you will. And he had money to kind of build a machine, right? And so he can just show up with an idea. And because he's an excellent pitchman and an excellent salesman and an excellent, talker, he can sell his own shit. He's got a lot of tools in his toolbox, and he's got a lot of interesting connections. And I think this is what can happen when, people have resources others don't.
Right.
When people have, and God bless him, right? I mean, he's playing his hand masterfully. Will his art stand the test of time? I don't know. Well, but it's an interesting, Koons is an interesting conversation because, of course, it bumps into the use of assistants, for example, or fabricators.
Right.
Is art a continuum of pure, is there so the purest art is made of the artist's own hand and down to some mass produced
Damien Hirst,
yeah. I mean, look, I tend to believe that art is what an artist says it is. You know, all these other people that say they know what art is. I just have to say, you know, well, are you an artist? Do you make art? No? Well, then how do you know what art is? Now, beauty's in the eye of the beholder. I mean, I could see that beauty is relative to that person or stuff, but I don't know that anybody has, you tell me, but I mean, it feels like the only people that really have the credentials, the credibility, and the expertise to speak to what art is or isn't are artists themselves.
Yeah.
I don't know. What do you think about that?
Another artist that comes to mind as we're talking about this is Murakami, right? And as we're talking about talk about blurring the lines between commercial and fine art. Right. I mean, shit, you know. I mean, look at his paintings, right? His flat paintings became so popular and such a thing. You know, there's no brush strokes. There's no, you know, it's like a machine could have done it.
Right.
So it takes away all the hand.
Yeah.
That like you said, like an artist would put into it. So you don't see the brush strokes. You don't see the artist's hand. And he's working with tons and tons of fabricators and artists who are working for him. And then also, for example, when he had that show at Mocha, I remember he had a Louis Vuitton store in the middle of the exhibition as you walk through it. Right. Right. And I remember there was a huge fucking controversy because they were like, you know, Louis Vuitton, that's not art, and it's blah. But you know what? He sold every fucking handbag in that show was sold out. Right. And he just kind of redefined what art is.
Well, look, part of this is an answer or a solution to the problem of the starving artist. I mean, artists are getting smart about making money.
Right.
Beyond galleries, beyond grants, beyond benefactors, beyond patrons.
Right.
They were limited for decades, centuries, maybe. They were, you know, it's like, this is how artists made money. Now artists are saying, no, fuck that. I can make money all kinds of ways. And by the way, God bless them, you know, and in the purists or the conservatives that want to say art is only this, I'm sorry, I disagree. I think art is, you know, big idea that is nuanced and multidimensional and, you know, it's ever evolving. And God bless the artists that are figuring out how to make fucking money for themselves.
The hardest part for me is, which is something I believe, is that someone said, if it looks like art, it's not art.
Interesting.
You know?
Yeah.
And
I love that, actually. That's really good.
Yeah. And
do you remember who told you that? It doesn't matter.
No, I don't
Tell
remember.
me later.
Yeah. And so that's kind of what you see out there, you know? And that's the hardest part for me, because in my head, I'm an artist and I learned a craft and I learned how to use certain tools.
Right.
And so I want to use those tools and express myself in that way. But then I look around the landscape and I see, like, you know, who would have thought that if you did neon lights, that would be art?
Right.
Who thought that if you put mirrors in a room with tons of lighting, that would be art, you know?
Right.
So it's just like, it's that whole exploration. And I guess to your point, you know, it's art because the artist says it's art. That's it.
Yeah.
So whatever the fuck that is, that's what art is.
Well, with that, my friend, my co-host with the most, man one.
Yeah.
We've exceeded our time.
We always exceed our time, you know?
We always exceed. Well, you know, this is a highly regulated industry that we're in. You know, we only have so much airtime allotted. So we got to go. But I want to shout out to the listeners and remind them to subscribe to this podcast, post comments, like and share to all their friends. We need the social media love. Also, of course, we've got our 24-hour hotline, 833-NOT-REAL, 833-668-7325. Call us and tell us what's on your mind. All that said, we're out. Have a beautiful day, Mr. Man One.
All right, sourdough. We out.
Sourdough.
Peace.